Well, welcome everybody to our third and final installment of kind of the introduction and um, kind of the kind of a short course on how to set up your CE broker account. We've got this is like I said, this is going to be our third and final installment. We've already done two of these, which are currently posted on our website. All the videos, all the Q&A from those prior sessions are posted on the website. For those of you who are attending out there, right now we're sitting at 270 something, but it's still ticking up. For those of you that are attending kind of out in TV land, you're going to have a chance to ask us questions using the Q&A feature later on in the presentation. Right now, I kind of want to introduce everybody to who's up here on the panelist. I've got, of course, myself. I'm Daryl Spinks. I'm the executive director for the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council. I'm joined today from my team, Robert Romig, who's our deputy ED. We've got Jennifer Nowak on here. She's our CFO. She's going to be helping us answer Q&A later on. And then Patrick Hyde, who is my GC, should be joining us too at some point in the future if he can figure out how to log in. Uh, he's he's not here yet, but he will be. And then we're also joined today by representatives from CE Broker and Propellus. We got Mr. Jason Grubb. Jason, I'm going to let you introduce your team.
Oh, sure. Yeah, happy to. So I have a couple colleagues joining with me. They're going to help monitor the question and answer section of the webinar, and then chime in just kind of as necessary. But I have our another client success manager of ours, Deb Carter, joining. And then I have one of our technical support specialists, Kenya Dubrol, joining as well.
All right. Thank you, Jason, Kenya, and Deb. I appreciate y'all joining us today. So let's just kind of we'll start off by just giving a very brief background on how we got to where we are today. So when BHEC started back in 2019 is when the legislation passed and created us. We actually started operations in 2020. One of the first things we realized very quickly was the sheer number of licensees we have under regulation is going to make it very difficult to track, manage, and regulate continuing education and compliance with continuing education requirements unless we began leveraging technology. We had one person, and we continue to this day to still have one person that does all of renewals, including compliance audits. So, with 94,000 of you, you can imagine that's a little difficult to do. So, we began exploring pretty early on, about 2022, the use of a system like CE Broker. We weren't focused in on CE Broker particularly, but just something like that. And we began exploring that. Uh, Make a long story short, we did competitive bidding. CE Broker won that bid, and then shortly thereafter, the legislature, not to say they were following our lead by any means, but the legislature adopted legislation that basically codified and required all agencies to do what we had already been working towards. So BHEC has had a pretty good head start on a lot of other agencies in this, and that we started long before it was actually required by law, but it is now in law. All agencies are required to use an online continuing education management system. And so that is what led us to where we are today. I will tell y'all that, because it is the law and because it's something that we need to do in order to maximize efficiency of operations at the agency, everyone is required to have a CE broker account. In other words, if you're renewing a license, if you have a license that is renewable, like LPC Associates, MFT Associates, they don't need to have an account. I think folks who are licensees with emeritus status, you don't need to have an account because uh, you're not having to submit continuing education. But for your MFTs, LPC, psychologist, LPA, school psych, all the social work license categories, all of you have to have a CE broker account. There's going to be no exceptions to that. And it's a platform that is used across the country. So it's not like we're testing something out on you. You're not guinea pigs on this. This is a tried and true system. It's working for millions of licensees across the country. Started in Florida. I'll let Jason go into all of that. Um, and beginning in January of, well, next month, January of 2026, if you're renewing a license in January of 2026, you will need to have a CE broker account set up, and you'll need to have your continuing education hours and courses uploaded into that system so that when you go into BHEC's renewal system and you renew your license, it will check against CE broker system and go, hey, is Daryl completed all his CEs? CE broker, if it gives me a thumbs up, our system renews your license and you go on. One big advantage to going this route is we're no longer doing pre-renewal audits. All the audits will take place after the fact. So nobody's going to get hung up with a pre-renewal audit because basically the CE broker system is doing that for us by our two systems talking to one another. We check with theirs to make sure you're in compliance. If you are, boom, you get renewed. If you're not, the system won't let you renew until you come into compliance. So that's the background on how we got here and kind of why we're here. Just to give you a little housekeeping, this webinar is capped at 1,000 attendees. If any of you have done board meetings or BHEC meetings with us, you know that's pretty common. It doesn't look like we're going to bump our heads up against that cap today, but in the event we do, we've set up a overflow room, if you will, in that anybody, if we hit more than 1,000 attendees, they'll be directed to a YouTube channel that CE Broker has, where they can watch the presentation live. They won't be able to do the Q&A from there. But again, I'm not too worried about us bumping up to that cap. It looks like everybody's going to be in this webinar platform, and everybody will have an opportunity to access the Q&A features later on. The webinar is being recorded, so we will add it to our collection of recordings on our website, along with all the questions and answers that you guys submit here today. We'll add that to the website so that this will be accessible, and we'll maintain it for probably at least the next 2 years, if not 3 years, on our website, so that folks can access this information. Because we know inevitably there will be stragglers who do not get things set up in time and will need some guidance, and it'll be handy to have those on the website to point to. If you're participating as an attendee, your microphones are disabled, the chat should be disabled, and you shouldn't be able to access the Q&A at this time. I'll actually turn on the Q&A, or Jason will later on in the presentation. We want y'all to focus and listen on what Mr. Grubbs is saying here and what we have to say, so that you get the full comport of the message that we're trying to get across to you. Because what we found is if we have the Q&A on, people divide their time and attention between listening and doing Q&A, and it kind of undermines the purpose of what we're wanting to do here today. Unfortunately, we just learned that on the third version of this. We should have learned it earlier, but nobody ever accused me of being smart. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. Jason, Robert, did I miss anything, or are we ready to hand this over to you, Mr. Grubbs?
I think we're ready to hand it over. Just one point of clarity. I'm going to focus primarily on the CE Broker platform itself and how to use it, and any questions related to CE Broker will be handled by myself and Deb and Kenya. If you have questions about specific board rules or any policy related questions, anything along those lines, those will be handled by Robert Jarrell and Jennifer Patrick, that team over there. So just some clarity on that front. Otherwise, I think we're ready to jump in if unless anyone else has an additional point or two.
I think we're ready.
Awesome. Let me just jump over to the presentation here. So welcome everybody. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Robert. Jennifer, Patrick, it's great to have you joining us as well. As Daryl mentioned at the top, my name's Jason Grubb. I'm with CE Broker. I serve as the board's, we call it a client success manager, essentially the board's primary point of contact for anything and everything related to our platform. As Daryl mentioned, we've done a number of these webinars already. We did one back in August, we did one in October, and now we're doing the third and final one here in December. So we've learned a fair bit through those various webinars, like Daryl mentioned, the Q&A point. But we find these to be extremely valuable in helping to orient the licensed population into the new requirements and how to use the platform. So just really appreciate y'all taking the time to join us today. So a few things. I'm going to provide you with a fairly thorough overview of CE Broker, help make sure that you understand who we are, how to use our platform to report hours, how to find approved CE content, how you can review your course history, upload documentation, and let's see, what else am I going to cover here? Oh, and where you can get a hold of our support staff as well, should you ever need it. So this webinar is scheduled for about two hours. The demonstration component itself will probably last around 45 minutes or so. So essentially, the entire back half of the webinar is available for Q&A. As Daryl mentioned, that's currently off. We will turn that on when the time comes. Just again, I want to emphasize my appreciation to you all for taking the time to join. I have a handful of slides to run through with you first, maybe 7 or 8 slides. Then we'll transition into the demo itself. But unless there's anything else, I will kind of move forward a little bit. One of the things I want to make sure licensees understand is that CE Broker is but one product line powered by a large organization called Propellus. Propellus is really modernizing how professionals, their employers, regulators, respective associations all work together for seamless compliance management. So whether it's managing continuing education requirements with the CE Broker platform, whether it's using the EverCheck platform, whether that's used by hospital and health system HR departments, verifies credentials for essentially any individual at any time, making sure that those folks are basically clear to be out on the floor. Or our Immuware platform that does that's a comprehensive employee and health or occupational health monitoring system. But they all kind of work in unison, really focused on the individual practicing professional, kind of regardless of where you are in that in your healthcare journey. So as Daryl mentioned at the top, about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, we were conceived out of as a solution for Florida's Department of Health and all 33 health related boards within that organization. And since then, we have grown. We now work with a little over 300 boards nationwide. That equates to a little over 5 million licensed professionals. And one of our kind of the secret sauce of our organization in some ways is that we also have robust partnerships with thousands of educational providers across the country, whether they are large national entities or small local, maybe what we call mom and pop shops or those regional state associations, ensuring that they're able to report completions on behalf of their learners as well. Texas actually marks the 12th state whose mental and behavioral health licensees we serve. So there's a good chance that some of your colleagues and peers in some of these other states listed on the screen are already familiar with CE Broker, possibly even using us. Fun fact that I like to weave into these is that I live in Colorado now, but I grew up in Texas, just north of Austin, and went to college at Texas State. So I'm personally pretty thrilled to see our solution come to the state of Texas. And I think we actually just added Pennsylvania to this list as well, but they're not implemented onto our platform yet. But soon we'll be able to add the state of Pennsylvania to this list as well. Our platform serves not just you, the licensed professional, but it's built with all three, kind of what we call the primary stakeholders in mind. So the licensing board, so in this case, Behavioral Health Executive Council, and the respective boards there have their own kind of unique portal and visibility into the system. Obviously, you, the licensee, and I'll show you everything involved in the licensee suite. Then education providers as well. So education providers can apply for approval for their providership or their courses within the platform. They can list their courses to appear in our course search, so they're easily found by you, the licensee, and they can report completions on your behalf into the system. So we have kind of a unique portal or tool for each one of these different stakeholders. Helps to ensure a seamless, verifiable reporting process for everybody. There are two primary ways that course completions make their way into the CE Broker platform, either via self-submission by you, the licensee, or provider-reported submissions that are entered into the system on behalf of the licensee. I won't dive into the specifics around the provider-reported piece, since that's really an element for those providers and how they get completions into the system. Just know that in determining who you are taking your CE from, some of those providers may report the completions into the system on your behalf. If they are not, you can report them into the system yourself, and I'll walk you all through that process here shortly. So you might be kind of wondering how this whole process works. We actually provide a free solution to our board clients. So the Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council, does not pay CE Broker for our platform. It's not funded by Texas taxpayers, and it's not appropriated out of the state legislature. It's a free solution to licensing boards, to licensees, and educational providers. We're able to support that free platform through a small percentage of optional paid subscriptions. So we have several options for licensees to consider when using CE Broker. Our primary plan, the one that's used by 85% of all licensees on our platform, is that basic free account. It's going to provide you with all the essential features that you need to meet the requirements of the board. So it's rich with features in CE tracking. Like I said, the majority of users use this basic free account. For those who prefer some additional convenience features, we do have some paid offerings at the professional and concierge account level. So these are designed for those licensees who just kind of want everything in one place and want to take some of the mental math and brain work out of making sure that they are 100% compliant with their requirements. Notably, the professional account includes a personalized transcript that calculates your remaining requirements against what you've already reported. Then lastly, there's the concierge account. This includes everything in the professional account, but it also includes a dedicated account manager. If you just want to send someone your documentation and have them upload it on your behalf, if you want someone to find, approve continuing education for you, they can do just about everything for the licensee except for actually complete the continuing education courses themselves. The last point I'll make here before jumping over into the platform is related to our support center. So we take a lot of pride in offering a dedicated in-house team of customer support specialists. These are all Propelis employees. They are all based here in the United States. They're available Monday through Friday. What would that be? 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. And additionally, we have a robust library of step-by-step guides, tutorial videos, and more in case you ever need it. And I'll show you the ways that you access those support channels here during the webinar. So with that, let me jump over into the licensee experience itself. So as a web-based software solution, everything done on CE Broker is accessed through our website, cebroker.com. So whether you're a licensee, whether you're the board, whether you're an education provider, this is where licensees will go, or this is where you will go to use the platform. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to sign up. I will walk you again through some of the different account options as part of the sign up flow. I'll show you how to review your compliance status, how to report CE, how to find courses, and then, like I mentioned before, how to access the support center in case you have questions. So the first thing I want to show you to do is how you go about creating an account for the very first time. You'll see the green box here in the upper right. It says Get Started. That's where you're going to go if you've never been to the platform before. So we're going to click Get Started. And our system is built bespoke to each respective boards and those respective professions' unique requirements. And so our system needs to know who you are in order to make sure that we are pulling up the right account options for you and displaying your credentials appropriately. So we need to know that we are in Texas. And for these account setup, for this account setup demonstration, we're going to use a marriage family therapist. We'll go ahead and click continue. It's going to show you different account options. One thing I didn't mention previously is that some professions, marriage and family therapists included, do have a fourth account here. That's called Pro Plus. I didn't mention it previously because it's not available for every profession, but for some professions, there's this fourth tier that essentially includes access to a catalog of over 500 courses that are included in the purchase price. So that, in this case, $99.99 gets you access to a whole bunch of courses that you can complete instead of paying the course fee. It's included in the cost. So, but for our account setup demonstration purposes, we're going to use the basic free account. We'll get started by clicking sign up. And our system is really driven based on your license number. We get regular data from the state, And so that's really the only thing we need to find you in the system. So I'm going to throw in 777-7777, and we'll go ahead and click continue. And if there is a account that's already been created in the system, so you'll see that there's, in states like Texas, within the Behavioral Health Executive Council, the same license number is issued across professions. So it's important that you are referencing the one that's specific to you, your license type, and your name. So make sure you're looking at the right one. But if you click one erroneously that already has an account in CE Broker, our system is going to prompt you and say, oh, you must have entered the wrong number because there's already an account there. Or if you forgot that you set up your account in CE Broker, a year ago or a year and a half ago, and you're coming back to it, our system's going to know, hey, there's already an account registered with that license number. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to go back to the free account, and I'm going to enter 777-77777. That should be the right one that I have pulled up for our test case. So in this case, here's this licensed marriage and family therapist. That's the one we're going to use for our basic account creation tutorial, confirming this is the person that we are in fact trying to sign up the account for. We'll click continue, and you'll see in this time it's the right license number. There's not an account created for them already, so it's going to pull up that information. So now the only thing that you need to do as a licensee is create your own access credentials so that you can access the system. I'm going to use a fake email address here. And then for our username and password, we're going to use, let's see, TX. And we'll create a password. Oh, that username is already taken. And you'll notice that when you're creating the password, there's some basic security protocols that you have to make sure you're meeting in creating the password. Nothing too crazy. I then hit create basic account, and we're in. That's really all you need to do to be able to access your CE Broker account. The first thing you'll notice on the screen here is going to display your name. It's going to display what type of account you have, your license. It's going to show you your current compliance status. In this case, it's showing that you are not complete. It's going to again show the state, the license number, and then the specific CE cycle. So our system is always going to default to the current CE cycle. So whatever CE cycle you are currently in is what's going to display here. And it's important to note that our system is displaying the CE cycle, not necessarily the license cycle. For you all, I think they're one and the same, so it shouldn't be an issue. In some states, they're not the same. So that's an important point of distinction to make. We can scroll down and see our course history. Of course, this is a brand new account. We just created it. There's nothing in the course history, but I'll be able to show you some of the features in this part of the tool here shortly.
Jason, just so I can reiterate for folks out there, your CE cycle is the same as your license renewal cycle in Texas. So don't worry on that issue.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Jarl. A few other things I want to mention here at the top. If you go to the gear icon in the upper right, this is where you can view your account settings, and you can change your email that's on record in the system. You can change your username and password, and you have some basic communication preferences that you can change as well. So if you only want notifications to come to your message box here within the CE Broker platform and not get an email, you can make those determinations here as well. So the one thing I want to make sure you all have visibility into is how you can view your CE requirements. This is actually a kind of a new feature that we just rolled out for those with a basic free account. And if you click either view CE requirements or requirements here, it's going to show you exactly what is required of you, a marriage and family therapist in the state of Texas. Historically, this link would just go to the board's CE rules page, and licensees kind of had to figure out what applied to them. That's no longer the case. Now we map it out specifically for those individuals. It shows you the specific subject areas, the total number of hours, and then any additional points that are relevant to your CE requirement. So in this case, the human trafficking requirement, the number of ethics that are required, the fact that you can roll 10 hours over from a current cycle to a future cycle, except human trafficking and jurisprudence does not carry over. So this is mapped out for you. And so when you are reporting CE into the system, you can kind of go back and look at what you've reported in your course history. Then you can kind of compare that against your requirements to make sure that you're putting everything into the system that is required. I actually have a test license already created that we'll use for the rest of our demonstration purposes. So let me go ahead and sign out of this one. And I'll sign back into the test license that I have created. Oops. Okay, so this is the test license we have loaded that we're going to use for the remainder of the demonstration, showing you how to report your continuing education, how you submit exemption waiver requests, etc. You'll notice this looks a little bit different in that instead of having a binary complete, not complete here, this actually has a percentage graph. That's because this is a professional upgraded account. So this is that $39.99 tier. Really, the only distinction is this gives you a personalized transcript that maps the requirements against what you've actually already reported. Just visually, it helps make things a little bit make sense a little bit more. But all the reporting, the exemption waiver stuff, all of that is exactly the same. Before I go further, I just want to make sure that you all know you can track multiple licenses within a single CE Broker account. So if any of you are, an MFT and a counselor, for instance, you don't have to have separate CE Broker accounts. You can track them all in one. You'll see I have all of those test licenses loaded into a single account here. So this Jane Doe is an LPC. They're a psychologist. They're also a social worker, and they're an LFM or LMFT as well. You'll see that they also have we also track for the Kansas Behavioral Science Regulatory Board. And so this individual has submitted their Kansas license to also be tracked in the system. It hasn't been processed and confirmed yet, but I just want to highlight that if you have additional licenses that you want to track in CE Broker, whether they are within BHEC or it's a different state, you can, by clicking this dropdown within your account, you can add those licenses here. And this is not specific to the professional or any of the paid accounts. This is a feature across all of the account options, including basic. So you'll notice that when I scroll down to the course history, this test license has a handful of things that are already reported into the CE Broker system. As either you or an education provider reports things into the account, they're going to show down here in the course history. If we were to click into any of these, like if we click into this test course example, that's not the one I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the provider. Oh, here we go. So if I click this Texas Counseling Test Provider course and I scroll down, this is an example of a course that's been reported on the licensee's behalf by the provider. And you know that because it says posted by this test provider. Anything that has been self-submitted will show here. It'll show that it was posted by the licensee, and you'll see the series of attestation questions the licensees are required to submit ahead of uploading that documentation. We'll scroll down and we'll also be able to see the certificate that the licensee uploaded corresponding with that course. If you ever need to download the documentation to store it elsewhere, you can do so. If you need to click it and view it, you can do that as well, or you can delete it if you uploaded the wrong certificate. You can delete it and upload the correct one. So one thing I'll show you is I mentioned the dynamic transcript. So whereas the basic account showed a licensee just the basic kind of requirements, the transcript shows that same information, but it calculates what's been reported and what's still outstanding and displays things in a little bit of a different way. So you'll see that this test license, they have to do 24 hours. They've already reported 8.5. And so it's showing the balance, and it's showing specifically kind of in what areas those are. So if I'm this licensee, I'm looking in the CE Broker account, I can see, okay, for the ethics, I have to do 6 hours. I've reported 2 just general ethics. I've done my jurisprudence, which counts as an hour, and I've done my human trafficking, which counts as an hour. I still need 2 hours of ethics. You can see I also need to do my distinct populations. So there's some outstanding balance for supervision. And then any kind of general CE remaining hours, there's the balance there as well. So typically a licensee would look at this and they say, oh, I completed a course yesterday. Let me go into CE Broker and report that. So let me show you how to go about reporting CE. So if I want to go in here and say I have the remaining balance of my ethics continuing education to report, at the top of the account, you'll see a button that says Report CE. We'll click this. And this is exactly the same user experience across all different account levels. So whether you have a basic account, an upgraded paid account, this is all exactly the same. So let's say that I need to report this outstanding ethics course, and it was an ethics course that counts towards the 50% rule. You can also report ethics that does not count towards the 50% rule. If you have questions around what those are, clicking the Learn More sections, it details exactly, this is reflective of the board's rules. Anything that counts towards the 50% rule basically means that that course and that provider meets these set criteria. You can report things that don't meet that criteria, but it will apply towards the non 50% rule. And if you have questions around what's involved in reporting for that specific reporting flow, if you click how to report, it's going to show you that you have to answer some attestation questions. You're going to have to indicate how that course was approved, and you're going to have to attach documentation. We'll go ahead and report this for demonstration purposes. And then I can show you some of the other reporting flows that are built in based on what the board allows, in this case, LPCs, to report as approved continuing education or demonstrations of compliance. Not all of this is continuing education necessarily. But so if I click report, it's going to ask for the date completed. Let's say we completed this yesterday. It has to be within the cycle. So I want to make sure that for it to populate for the current transcript. And we'll say that this was a live course. The board, I don't believe you have delivery restrictions, right? So whether it's a live course or an anytime course, it doesn't really matter. Is that right, Daryl?
Correct. Don't get hung up on what you select here because we don't care whether it's live, recorded. None of that matters. You can just pick whatever you need, whatever is most appropriate there.
Yeah.
That's not you're not going to get caught. That's not a gotcha moment.
Right. So remember, there were a few specific subject areas required of these licensees. There was the supervision, distinct populations, and ethics, and then the kind of the general or the remaining hours. Whatever the course is that you're reporting, you'll select those respective kind of subject areas. So in this case, we're doing ethics. Let's say it was a 2-hour course. We're going to enter 2. We'll go ahead and click continue. And what's the name of the course? These are open format dialog boxes, so we can just put test course. We'll click continue. We'll put test provider. And I mentioned that because this is CE that counts towards the 50% rule, there are specific entities and essentially some rules around who can provide this course, where this information can come from. And so we'll make sure that we're selecting one of these options, whichever is pertinent to the certificate that you're holding in your hand. We'll say that this was offered by a state association. We'll click continue. And it's only after you've answered those attestation questions when the system's going to ask you to upload documentation. So we'll go ahead and find that test certificate that I have set up here. We'll load that. And whether it's a PDF, a JPEG, a PNG file, basically any kind of image document you can stick into the CE Broker system. We'll click continue. Our system's going to essentially verify or ask you to verify that what you're submitting is true and correct. It's a little bit of the honor system here, but you'll click submit, and then you'll get a confirmation that that has been submitted into CE Broker. You can print this for your own records if you want. You can, take a screenshot of this. You can document this elsewhere. So if you ever have an issue, if you reported something, but for some reason it's not showing in your account or it's not showing where you think it is, you have information when you reach out to our support center. This will help them really easily help to, find out what exactly happened. So
Jason,
go Yeah, sorry, go ahead,
I
Daryl.
was going to say, Jason, could you kind of speak to, I know a lot of folks wonder, is CE Broker, when we upload that, are they verifying whatever is on that certificate? In other words, are we reviewing that certificate at that time?
It's a great question. CE Broker is just a management tool that's used by the board. We are not a regulating entity. We are not approving CE. We're not creating CE content. We're not doing any auditing. And so, to answer your question simply, no, we are not verifying that the documentation submitted into CE Broker is in fact what you know what you say it is.
We're not
That's the
verifying that it's not a picture of a cat or your grandkids.
Correct. Right.
Yeah,
Correct. Not right now.
right.
We are
Right.
not currently. There is maybe down the road some document verification tools that we can integrate into the system. But as of right now, no, that's not the case. We're simply relying on any kind of post-renewal auditing or other type of compliance enforcement mechanism the board may have in place to find instances of folks either erroneously or intentionally uploading incorrect information.
Which, for the record, everybody, that's exactly how we work prior to CE Broker as well. I mean, it truly is an honor-based system of we rely on y'all to be truthful and honest in reporting that yes, I have done these hours. I have the documentation to prove it because we've never required you to upload it before, but we are requiring it now. But we're not doing a substantive review of that unless you are selected for a post-renewal audit. So it's still practically functioning the same way it is always done. You shouldn't feel or realize anything different.
Correct. So then you can either, if you have additional CE to report, you can click this button. It'll take you back into that reporting flow. Or if you want to jump back and look at your transcript and make sure that what you reported does in fact count towards your compliance hours, we can click view transcript. We'll jump back over here and you'll see that the transcript is updated. Those 2 hours are now in there. In addition to the 2 hours that were already reported and the jurisprudence and the human trafficking, you now have no hours required for ethics. You can move on to one of these other reporting criteria. I mentioned before, this is the upgraded professional account. For those with the basic account, if you go to overview and you scroll down to the course history, this is where you'll see record of that completion. You'll see it says test course. Here's the date that we said it was and the number of hours. If you click the drop down, you'll be able to view all that respective information, how you reported it to the ethics recognized towards the 50% rule, 2 hours, and the documentation itself. So I just want to stress that regardless of your account level, you have visibility into what you've reported. It's just how it displays for licensees, if it's taking advantage of some of those extra convenience features or not. Now, let's say that we reported the wrong course or it was for the wrong number of hours. You do have some editing and some re-reporting tools directly within your account. Regardless of whether you have a basic account or a paid account, this is all done in the same way. You go to course history. Let's say we want to modify this course that we just submitted. We realized that, oh, that's the wrong one. I need to fix it. You can do some basic editing right here in the account. If you click these ellipses, either here or via the dropdown, either one, click the ellipses and you have an option to either add supporting documentation if you have something else that you want to add to it, or you can edit the course. So let's just say we want to make some basic changes. We just want to edit the course. We can click edit. And then if you want to change the course title, the provider, or the date that it was completed, you can do that with basic editing tools here and you can save those changes. So let's say instead of the 9th, oh, I was incorrect. This was completed on the 8th. We can click save changes. That'll update here. So now you'll see it says 12/8/2025. If you need to change, if you need to change the number of hours that were reported, that can't be done with the basic editing tool. In that case, a licensee would have to delete the course. We'll click delete. We'll see that it goes away and the transcript has now dropped back down and that test course is no longer there. And then we can go back and re-report that CE. So if we wanted to re-report that ethics requirement, we would do it this way. And I'll show you how some of the logic in our system works and how overages apply. So if you So for instance, if you go over your ethics hours, that'll roll to the remaining CE required section. I'll show you how that works as well. So let's say in our case, we want to re-report that ethics course, and it was on the 8th, and we'll do live. Like we said before, it doesn't matter. And it was a web-based program. We'll do ethics, but in this case, let's say it's 5 hours. It's a 5-hour ethics course. We'll click continue. We'll go through this whole process again. We'll do test ethics course, test provider. And then we'll say it's the same. It was the local association that approved it. We'll upload our documentation. And we'll click continue. Yes, the answers I'm submitting are true and correct. We can go back and view the transcript. And you'll see now that updated, but this licensee, they only needed 2 more hours to reach the 6 that we required. Because remember, they had the 2 hours already reported, and then the 1 from jurisprudence and the 1 from human trafficking. So our system says, okay, here's the 2 of the 5. The other 3 carried over. So we'll see down here, those additional 3 are now down here in the remaining hours required. And this is all based on the board's specific rules and even allowing those ethics courses to carry over to the remaining hours. If I'm correct, Daryl and Robert, the jurisprudence and the human trafficking do not carry over, though. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then we can go back over to our course history. We'll see that ethics course reported here.
Jason, could I ask you to talk to folks? I know one of the big questions we got is what folks should do when they're reporting a course like this, but that is say a full day or a multiple day conference that has some ethics and some distinct populations,
Sure.
but then other hours. How should they report that?
Yeah, great question. I'll jump over to one of the other accounts just to keep the transcript clean. So let me jump over to like the marriage and family therapist, for instance, just because there's nothing reported in this account, so it might make for a good demonstration. So you'll see there's nothing in this person's account. They're 0% complete, which is a problem because their renewal deadline is in 25 or 22 days, whatever the math is on that. So in this case, to answer your question, Robert, they would go to report CE. And let's say that in this example, they're reporting, let's say that they, in fact, so a real world example, let's say they went to their state association's national conference and they were there for a whole day and they took, all of their CE requirements there, and they want to report that. Because it's a national or a state association, it would count towards the 50% rule because, as we see here, that has to be from a state, regional, local association. So if we're reporting for having attended that conference, we'll say that this was, Monday, and it was live. Again, that doesn't matter, but in this case, it would be live because you're there in person. And we'll say that it was a conference. What you would do in that case is you can populate multiple boxes here at once. And so we'll say, oh, this I got 6 hours of ethics here. I got 2 hours in distinct populations. I got 2 hours in supervision. We can say that we did our 2 hours of essentially telemedicine requirement, and we got 4 hours of general, whatever the numbers are. And you'll click continue. In that situation, we'll say test MFT conference. We'll say test MFT state association. And because we're reporting it as applying to the 50% rule, it's going to be this association option. All you'll need to do is upload whatever the verifiable documentation is associated with that completion. So in this case, if it's a conference, if you got a transcript from that conference that shows you having completed all those respective courses, you can upload that transcript. If you got one certificate that says, 15 hours, state association conference, dated 12/8, 25, you'd upload that. If the association issued you individual certificates for each one of those courses, you can upload multiple certificates in the system. So in that case, we would let's just say it's they gave one certificate for having attended the entire conference. As long as those individual subject areas are represented on the certificate as saying, it was 6 hours of ethics and 2 hours in distinct populations, as long as whatever you're submitting as supporting evidence backs up what you're reporting, that's all that's required. So I can submit this certificate here, and let's say it's a situation where I do in fact have an additional documentation as well. We can submit additional documentation. So if you have more than one certificate, we can click continue. Yes, true and correct. We'll click submit. And then if we go back over to our account, you'll now see that those 16 hours in ethics, in distinct population supervision, and the remaining hours, that all applied. If we go back over to our course history, we'll see that listed here, and we scroll down and we can see both of the certificates that we uploaded into the system are represented there as well. Do you think that answers the question, Robert? Is there anything else you'd like me to show on that front?
I think that, Robert, also part of your question was if the conference is for multiple days, is it best to just you can only list one day? Is it best to just put the last day of the conference when you're entering it into the system so that you have a date that you put in and it's the last day, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things we don't care about as long as the date is within the cycle.
Yeah, as long as it's within cycle, and as long as the what I would also say is just as long as that date, let's say it's a 3-day conference and you reported for the second day, as long as that date range or one of those dates is also documented on the certificate or the transcript or whatever it is you're uploading, I think that's sufficient. One of the other things I wanted to make sure and show you all is, well, let me delete this. Let me delete this course to bring us back to 0, because there are there's some exemption related stuff I want to make sure and cover as well. So for MFTs, for instance, there are 2 exemption scenarios, either essentially stating that you do not offer telehealth services, and for all of the other professions, counselors, social workers, and psychologists, and MFTs, there is a military exemption waiver as well. And both of those will essentially zero out your respective CE requirements. And so the way that those are reported is when you go to report CE, so I'll do marriage family therapist first because it has the telehealth exemption as well. Instead of reporting CE, if you see the tab here labeled additional options, if you click additional options and the specific CE cycle, you can only report an exemption for a given cycle once. So you'll see those 2 options here. If you are active duty military, you can report that here. You'll submit whatever the state DoD papers are supporting that. Report that here. This will actually route to the board, and so you will not see your hours zeroed out until the board looks at that documentation and says, yes, we're good to go, and they approve it. And then that'll waive all of your CE requirements. The telehealth requirement for MFTs is a little bit different in that once this is submitted, it just removes the technology assisted services requirement from the licensee's transcript. So I'm going to go ahead and click report. I'll just walk you through the process of submitting that. It's fairly simple. Yes, I certify that I do not provide telehealth services. There's not a evidentiary documentation required with that because I don't even know what that documentation would be to say that you don't do something.
How do you prove a negative?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll click submit, and we'll return to the transcript, and we'll see that for the MFT license, if I go back to the transcript here, you'll see that telehealth requirement, the technology assisted services requirement, has been removed. They still have to do all 30 hours, but that specific subject area requirement is no longer there. A couple other reporting things I want to share that are universal across all the professions, or generally speaking, are some of these other options that aren't recognized towards the 50% rule, like authoring a book, teaching or attending a course, self-study, etc. And I think we actually changed this one. This is a play account, so I think that's why it's not reflective here. But I think we actually changed this to be any essentially secondary education course, because it's, if I remember, or no, that was for social work. Was that right?
That's for social work. Yeah.
Just social work. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Jason,
So
there's one thing on that military reporting I wanted to point it out for our
sure.
active duty folks out there. You actually don't have to wait until your renewal is opened. In other words, until we open your license for renewal to request the CE waiver. I think you can do that in any time during the renewal cycle. So that if you know you're going to be deployed or you know you're going to be away when it comes time to renew your license, and you don't want to have to scramble to get your CEs waived kind of as the deadline approaches, you can do that at any time, and we can go ahead and approve it so that you don't have to worry about doing the continuing education throughout that throughout that license renewal cycle. So whereas everybody else, you're not going to be able to renew your license until about 75 days out. So I mean, what I'm saying is you could do it more than 75 days out. You can ask for that waiver.
Right.
More than 75 days prior to your renewal deadline is what I'm trying to say. Doing it poorly, but that's what I'm trying to say.
No, that makes sense.
Daryl, can I clarify? Are we going to accept that as exemption from the renewal fees also? Don't they have to submit that separately to us?
Well, that actually comes to us. The CE does. You're talking about the waiver from the renewal fees?
Correct. I thought we were doing that separately because we
It does. That has to be done.
open.
That has to be done separately. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's within our system. But
Yes.
this is just the CE. So
Correct. I just wanted to make that distinction that
Yeah.
a waiver from the CEs does not include a waiver from the fees.
yeah,
Another important point for me to cover is for that ethics requirement, the human trafficking counts as an hour in ethics, and so does the jurisprudence. Those are reported here separately. They are not reported under the CE recognized for the 50% rule or not recognized for the 50% rule. You'll see that they, well, if I click report, you'll see that the human trafficking jurisprudence are not listed here, even though they kind of fall under ethics as a child subject area, for lack of a better word. So I just want to make sure and give licensees clarity that for those two requirements specifically, you need to report them under human trafficking and under jurisprudence. But a couple of these other options I wanted just to touch on: self-study, authoring a book or peer-reviewed article, etc. You can submit these as demonstrations of competence. There's a few restrictions though. One, they don't apply towards the 50% rule, and two, there are hour limit restrictions on some of those, which is detailed under the Learn More sections of each of these respectively. So if you click self-study, you'll see that you can only count 1 hour as self-study. For authoring a book or a peer-reviewed article, the max allowable is 5 hours. If you try to report more than that, so let's say I am reporting, self-study, I'll go ahead and click report. I'll say this was yesterday. We're going to count it towards general. If I put 2 hours in here or 3 hours, and I click continue, our system's going to say you can't do that. It has to be between 0.5 and 1. So it's going to flag things if you're trying to report overages for some of these additional options. Our system's going to let you know. And so we'll click continue. And in this case, let's just say it was, you read an article in, the Journal of Medicine, something like that. And just documenting, was it related to my practice? Yes. If you say no, our system's not going to like that. It has to be related to practice. Say yes. But then again, this is a situation where there is not a required upload of evidentiary documentation. Like, again, I don't even know what that would look like. I guess you could take a photo of the journal article or something like that, but go ahead and hit submit. We can jump back to the account and we'll see that that counted 1 hour towards the self-study. And again, if we go to the course history, it's documented there, there as well. I'm trying to think, that's just about everything that oh, a couple other items. If you ever need help with CE Broker, we have a few options available for licensees. Like I mentioned at the top, we have a dedicated in-house customer service center. They're all employees of ours. They're all based here in the United States. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. And you can access those folks a few different ways. If I jump over to our support center on our website, this is just access from cebroker.com support. So if you go CE Broker, this is from our homepage, cebroker.com, and you click support, support, it's going to give you a few options. You can either contact us, you can support it, you can submit a ticket via email, or you can use the live chat icon here in the bottom right. So if you want to start a live chat, our AI chatbot tool, her name's Julie, she'll be the first prompt there. But if you don't want an AI chatbot or you can't get your problem solved with the AI chatbot and you want to request a representative, you can just ask for that and it's going to route to a live person. There may be a wait time. I think our average wait time for the live chat is around 6 or 7 minutes, something to that effect. But you will get a live agent who can help you. Sometimes people prefer submitting tickets or submitting issues or asking questions via email or via the live chat because you can send screenshots and our agents can do screen shares with you and stuff. Give some additional tools. If you want phone support, we do offer a dedicated phone line for licensees as well. However, just given the volume of individuals on our platform, only those with an upgraded paid account have access to a live agent on the phone. If you have an upgraded paid account, that phone number displays within the professional account. So I want to make sure and detail that for licensees here as well. If you're the kind of person who, tends to solve problems on your own, or you want to try and solve an issue on your own, or your issue is outside of those business hours of our support, we do have a robust suite of help articles, step-by-step tutorials, etc. on our website. And these generally can help licensees solve just about every question that they have. So if you have a question around how do you, how do you report CE? If you click report continuing education, for instance, we have videos, step-by-step documentation with screenshots that walks you through basically everything that I've already shown you. And if you have questions around how to, upgrade your account or how to change your password or, anything else, generally speaking, our support resource has just about anything in there that a licensee might need. And then lastly, one thing I wanted to highlight is how do licensees go about finding continuing education content on our platform? So I mentioned all the education providers that we work with. Not all of them list their courses on our site. Not all of them are reporting completions into our system. Ideally, they all are, but they have, they can make that determination for themselves. For those that do, they have chosen to list their content on our marketplace. And so if you want to find approved content, you can click the Take CE tab here, or you can click the Find Courses tab from our homepage, either one. Let's go ahead and click Take CE. This is going to route you specifically to your profession and courses that are listed on the site for marriage and family therapists in Texas. If you just click it from our homepage, it's going to ask you to, list the state and the profession, etc. But you can sort by subject area. So if you wanted to find ethics courses, for instance, that are hosted on our site, you can access those here. Anything with a green Take It Here button, that entire transaction takes place on the CE Broker system. So you'll pay for the course on our site, you will complete the course on our site, and it will immediately populate into your CE Broker account. There are courses on here that don't have a Take It Here button. In that case, you'll just click on the link. It'll take you to the provider's website where you'll pay for the course or register for the class and complete it there. If you see a course with the says Pro Plus, that's that additional account tier that I mentioned previously, where the course price is included in the account registration price. But for instance, this ethical concerns when working with children and adolescents course, this does not have a Take It Here button. It does not have the Pro Plus button. So in this case, you can click on it, you can learn more about it. But if you were to click the course registration link, this is going to take you outside of the CE Broker system. So I just wanted to orient licensees to the course search there as well. But I think that just about covers everything that I had on my list. I did say we'd have the whole second hour for Q&A, so I think I'm holding true to that. But before we jump over to that portion of the presentation, Daryl, Robert, Kenya, Deb, anything that I missed that you think I should revisit?
No, I think you
I
did
can't think of
great.
anything.
Yeah, did great, and we're getting hot and heavy questions already.
Okay. Well, where should we start on the questions front?
A couple I've already gotten that I should address. One question is, if you have multiple licenses, can you enter in the course once or do you have to enter it twice? And the answer is yes, you have to enter it twice because the requirements across each board may be different. We have aligned them a lot, but they're not always the same. And especially if you have licenses in different states, the requirement's going to be different, and one course may or may not count for both licenses. And so you do have to report a course each time you're using it if it's for a different license. So report it under each license.
I will, yeah, that's exactly right, Robert. And I will add to that if a provider is reporting a course on your behalf, the way our system is mapped and the way that providers can get courses into the system, if a provider is reporting on your behalf, it will map to any license for which that course is also accepted. So whether that's additional licenses within BHEC, let's say you're a counselor and you're a psychologist, for instance, or you are a social worker in Texas and you're a social worker in Kansas, any states that we're working with and that are in the system, as long as that provider has sought approval for that specific course for those respective boards, when they report it once, it'll map across all of them. So just a distinction there.
Another question we've gotten that has come up a number of times, someone noted that they were not able to add a course that was 1.5 hours and that felt like they'd lost some time. I suspect that was a human trafficking course, but either way, as Jason showed you, there are categories that have limited CE credit. And so you are only allowed to get 1 hour for human trafficking. You are only allowed to get 1 hour for the jurisprudence, the 5 hours for the book or article. And so the system won't let you report more than what you're allowed to receive. I know folks may take more than the 1 hour in human trafficking. That is not required. State law only requires you to take 1 hour course. And it didn't automatically count for CE. The boards have chosen to grant an hour of CE because state law requires that. And then I've seen a couple of questions I've already responded to, but the question of carryover hours, and so that is a complicated topic. If you are asking about carrying over hours from before your current cycle, we did not have CE Broker in place. We were not tracking CE then. So I'm going to emphasize, and Daryl have emphasized, for this one time only, single use, do not do this again. But for this one time, you may report 10 hours to carry over if you had them, if they're legitimate, and just falsify the date so that it comes into this renewal cycle. Again, just for something that happened, we're now talking like 2 years ago, and you're carrying it over to the current cycle. You can pick a date within this cycle so that it will get reported onto this cycle. Now, going forward, the system will automatically move 10 hours forward if you qualify for it. You do not have to do any manipulation and do not falsify any of the dates going forward. That is not allowed. But Jason, there's been an ask about how the carryover works, and how do they recognize which hours to get carried over? Would you talk through how the system does that?
You're talking about carry over from one cycle to another, not carried over from like ethics to the remaining hours required, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So well, here, let me log into because we actually, let me show, because we do explain a little bit of this within the account, but then I can elaborate on that as well. Let me sign back in to this test account. So licensees will see, if you click the see more info section here, we do mention that a licensee may carry forward to the next period a maximum of 10 hours. However, human trafficking and jurisprudence does not count. So when you are, because we don't display a new cycle for a licensee until we get a renewal in the data that comes from the state. So once a licensee renews, then we can populate a new cycle for, in this case, it would be 8/1/26 to 7/31/28, or whatever the case may be. And so if you are reporting hours that you want to carry over, you ideally report them into first into the category that you want them to carry over to. So our system works in essentially chronologically. So if you want, for instance, ethics hours to carry over to the next year, report those first, because any overage over your required total number, because remember, ethics will carry over first to the additional CE required section, but then beyond that, you can bank up to 10 hours to the future cycle. And so because it's chronological, if you want the ethics to carry over, report those first. If you want one of the other, distinct populations or something like that to carry over, report that first, because once those 10 hours are reached, the system's going to stop carrying those over. And so if you wanted the ethics to carry over, but you reported the, additional CE required first, if you've reached that 10, the ethics won't carry over because you've kind of already capped out. So if you've done that, you can go in and you can delete a submission and then re-report the thing that you want to kind of the system to prioritize. But that's just something to keep in mind for licensees. Once you renew your license and you get a new CE cycle loaded into the system, you'll then see those hours populate into that new transcript. But until you renew, there's no transcript for those hours to kind of populate. So that's just kind of churning on the back end until you renew your license, and we're able to load a new transcript cycle for the licensee. I see one of the questions here, and I don't think it's been answered, but if you initially pay for an upgraded paid account and then want to discontinue or drop to the basic account, what information is lost or no longer accessible from within from the paid years? Happy to report that no information is lost. Any historical CE submissions are still in the CE broker platform. The only thing that you lose is that dynamic transcript visibility that I'm displaying here. And access to CE Broker support via telephone. I was going to sign out and sign back into that basic account that we created at the start, just to, again, kind of show the distinction between the upgraded and the basic. Again, reminder that everything that the board is asking you to do can be accomplished in the free basic account. It just requires a little more mental bandwidth on part of the licensee to know what exactly you've reported and what is still outstanding. And again, I just want to reiterate, you do have access to live support from CE Broker via chat and email. It's just that you don't have access to the phone support.
One question we received, I said I would answer it live, is someone had asked for us to explain the 50% rule. And the 50% rule is something that is common amongst all the professions: psychology, counseling, marriage and family therapy, and social work. Each of your rules, your respective professions rules, have a requirement that at least half of your continuing education hours have to come from a provider that is listed in that rule. And it will be providers such as national, state, local, regional associations, hospital systems, university systems, training programs, supervisors within the profession. There's several lists, and when you're reporting hours, if you'll remember back, Jason clicked on there was a drop down menu as you're reporting, and if you're reporting for stuff that complies with 50% rule, you can click on that drop down menu and it will show you the list. Here he's showing it to you now to learn more. This will be the list of providers that's listed here. Will show you if you took your course from one of these entities or individuals, then it's going to qualify and meet the 50% rule requirement. The purpose and intent behind this rule is to make sure that folks are not just getting 100% of their CEs from crazy Uncle Larry's bargain basement CE over here for $29.95 and you rack up all your CE hours. We want to make sure that you're getting those hours from competent, reliable sources like Texas Counseling Association, TAMFT, Texas Psych Association, NASW Texas. We know those folks don't put on shoddy programs. And so that's why we have that 50% rule there in place, is to make sure. Now, the good thing is I suspect most of you get your hours from folks that are already on that list, which is why we don't really see a lot of problems with people missing or violating the 50% rule. But just be aware that is out there. I'd encourage you to study that. But like I say, it's not hanging a lot of people up, but it's probably just because most of you are taking your courses from reliable sources to begin with.
And Daryl, I want to add to that, because there was one question I think related to asking CE Broker what are any of your CE courses counting toward the 50% rule. And just going to reiterate what Jason said, CE Broker is not creating CE accounts, CE content. It is a platform that other providers may use. And so it will be up to you to know who the provider is that you're selecting, whether you get your CE from CE Broker, from your local association, from another online CE tool. You can bring any CE to this. You will have to then know who is providing that CE content. And it could be that there is a course that one of the state associations signs up and has a provider account on CE Broker and reports courses, makes courses available through them. Those associations would be part of the 50% rule, and it would count. There may be other private CE providers that don't count to the 50% rule.
I see a question here from, I think, Michelle. Licensed in multiple states: Colorado, Florida, Missouri, Texas. Am I able to utilize your site to track my CEUs for each state? I did touch on this at the beginning, but I think it's worth revisiting because it's a common question. So this is the basic free account that we created at the beginning. I remember I mentioned that this is a feature available regardless of the account type you have. So when you register your account in CE Broker for the first time, again, our system operates kind of chronologically. So the very first account that you used, or the license number that you use to create your account, is going to be the default here. If you want to add additional licenses to your CE Broker account, you click the drop down here, and then you'll add new licenses into the system, whether it's a license you hold in the state of Texas with BHEC or one of these other licenses. The caveat being that we only track for those states with whom we contract. And so in your example, I think you referenced I saw Florida. Where was that? I saw. Oh, sorry. We moved it to the answered column. Long story short, some states we track for, some states we don't. If you recall from the presentation that I gave a second ago, here, let me go back to this page. Here's a handful of the other mental behavior health regulating entities that we currently work with. We also did just add Pennsylvania. However, they're not listed here yet because they haven't gone through the onboarding process. But if you are also licensed in any of these states here, then yes, you can also track that license within CE Broker just by adding it here. So you'll add it, you'll input a little information that'll route to our team to tie those licenses together on the back end. Usually takes about 24 hours. Then you'll see them both here. So then you can just toggle between whichever one you want to view your current compliance status for or report continuing education for. But just again, like I said before, it is chronological. So the one that you created the account with initially is going to be the one at the top. So that's an important point of distinction for licensees, making sure that if you are reporting for Kansas, for instance, that you are selecting the Kansas license when you're reporting. So you're not accidentally reporting for a license that you don't intend to.
So I have another question here again about conference reporting. And this is on us, not CE Broker. Um, Teresa, you asked at the TCA conference, you were told to individually link every session from the conference. And I think that was our understanding at the time with the TCA conference. And so that, as you saw today, that's wrong. You can do it either way. So clearly you can enter a conference and enter multiple categories of hours for the whole conference. That is great. Or if it's gets confusing or for any other reason you would want to, you can report grouped hours, all the ethics just in one way from the one conference, and then separately report the non-ethics hours. Either way is fine. But it clearly CE Broker set up that you can enter just once for a whole conference. And we also got questions about, well, what if the certificate doesn't show all of the different breakout sessions and all of the different categories? Again, you can upload other proof besides the certificate. I would suggest just upload the agenda from the conference that shows those hours. But I will say another person asked, well, what if the CE doesn't specify whether it's ethics or supervision or distinct populations? Use your best judgment. If the CE is clearly definitionally a distinct population training, then we would expect you to say that. But if it's a general CE course and you just decide that it relates to supervision, that's not the same. So you don't get to make up your own classification if the provider has described it a certain way. Because they may not have wanted to take the effort to make sure it met all the ethics requirements or whatever. So
I see a question here. It looks like one of the latest ones that came in. So marriage family therapists do not take jurisprudence each cycle, question mark. I uploaded my last jurisprudence from previous cycle and the CE Broker said it was not applicable to current cycle. So my understanding is that yes, jurisprudence is required every cycle. The reason why you got that error prompt in CE Broker is because because we just contracted with the Behavioral Health Executive Council earlier this year. So we're starting with this current cycle. Previous cycles are not yet in CE Broker. And so if you're trying to upload a course or a jurisprudence exam for a previous cycle, our system is going to say that's not a course for the essentially for the cycle reported, because we don't have that cycle in the system. It's essentially starting with this cycle and moving forward. So that's why you got that error message, not because it's not required. Am I understanding that right, Daryl and Robert? It is required for every cycle, correct? Okay.
Yeah, it's required for LPCs every cycle. I think social workers, it's required if you're a supervisor every cycle. I'm trying to remember. Patrick, on MFTs, is it every cycle as well?
For the jurisprudence,
Yeah.
it's only for the supervisor status.
Supervisors.
Okay. It'll show I'll just tell you this, it should show up in your transcript, in your, what do you call it, Jason, the dynamic transcript?
We call it for the upgraded accounts, we call it the dynamic transcript, and that parses out those specific subject areas.
What do you call the one that shows up in the basic account though? Because you get a transcript there too that shows you what the requirements are.
Yeah, we just call it, what do we call it? We call it a requirement visibility tab, or a static transcript, I guess would be an appropriate
Static transcript. Yeah, that's what y'all were calling it. So
Yeah.
if you want to see what your requirements are, you can look at that static transcript in if you have a basic account, you just look there and it will show you. And if you are a supervisor, it will say, oh, you got to have the juris.
You'll see it's not displayed here but that's because this test account we have loaded, they don't have the supervisor
They don't have
credential.
supervisor status. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But it would display here under ethics, or
Yeah.
right under human trafficking,
Yeah.
if this test license had it.
So we've set the system up so that you'll know what you got to have, what the requirements are. You'll be able to see it in that transcript. So somebody was asking, does CE Broker AI scan the user computer potentially? No, we do not. We're not using AI in the system. So, and I'd already answered, I think, that once before too. We are not, y'all got to, I want everybody to understand, whatever you upload into CE Broker, that belongs to BHEC and to you. It doesn't belong to CE Broker. It doesn't belong to Propellus. That is our data, and that is your information. It is not sold. It is not subject to. It's not shared with anybody else. We're not selling your email addresses, your phone numbers. None of that stuff is going on. And so just that's kind of. I know everybody's got a big fear on that because it's. I remember Dr. Taylor one time when we were first exploring this. He said, look, oftentimes if something's free, that usually means you're the one that's on the plate. You're the you're what's being sold, the product, but that is not the case here. That's something that we had negotiated with CE Broker, and it's a business model that they've used, a long time now. So
yeah, I'll just elaborate on that. If our contract stipulates, I think our contract with every client stipulates that if the contract were ever terminated for any reason, we return any data back to the board within 10 days. So it is the board's data. It's your data. It's not, we don't own it by any means. We just store it.
Yeah.
I see a question here for the required cultural competency requirement, or what formerly known as cultural competency. Now I believe it's distinct populations for LPCs. What category does that go under? I can show you that here really quickly. So, well, here, let me go over to the, I think it's the same actually for regardless of because the distinct populations is required for MFTs also, or no? It is.
Distinct populations, yes.
For everybody.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
It's an across the board.
Okay. So I can use this account to show you. So I know this is an LPC asking the question, but it's the same for this MFT test account we have set up. So if you go to report, and we'll see, so distinct populations, I believe it's under both the recognized towards 50% rule and not recognized for the 50% rule. So if we click report, you'll see it listed here, or it can be reported for not recognized. So if we click report, you'll report it there. So that's where the distinct populations, that's where any of these specific subject areas live, is under either the counting towards 50% rule or not counting towards the 50% rule. But I can go ahead and report an example here just to show you. I'll show you how it looks in a basic account because I know I showed you previously how it looks in the upgraded paid account. So we'll say this was an anytime course. This is, a web-based course you took kind of at your leisure. Distinct populations will say it fulfilled the full requirement. We'll click continue. Same reporting flow I showed you before in the professional account. Was it related to the practice? Yes. Asks for documentation. Throw our certificate in there. Click continue. And if we go back to the course history, you'll see that it displays. What you'll notice doesn't change though is you won't see this tabulate a percentage towards your compliance the way the upgraded account does. And if you go back to the requirements tab, this hasn't updated the requirement, or I guess it's 3 hours for MFTs. This has not updated. Remember, this is a static transcript. It's just giving you visibility into what your requirements are. It's not adjusting based on what you report and what's still outstanding the way the other transcript did that I showed you before. But it is documented here in your course history. So you just have to kind of toggle back and forth between your course history and what's required, and making sure that that the two are matching up.
I do see one question here that asks, is my CE broker account connected to the renewal page? How do we indicate that we have reported all CE requirements to CE broker?
That's a good question. So the visibility of your status in CE broker as being complete or not complete doesn't display within the board's licensing system, at least not to my knowledge. But when you do renew your license starting in January, not currently, if you renew today, you won't encounter this, but starting next month, the system will check CE broker for your compliance status. And if you are not complete, the system's going to say you need to go and report missing hours. If you are complete, you'll be able to proceed with renewal. So the systems are talking to each other in that sense on the back end. But as far as I know, it's not actually displaying within the licensee portal in your system. Am I understanding that right, Daryl, Robert, or Jenny?
Sorry, Jason, I was zoned out reading.
Oh, that's okay. My understanding is that when the compliance check is in place starting next month, it'll notify a licensee if they're not complete and they have to go to CE broker and report anything that's missing, but it's not actually displaying their compliance status.
That's right.
Essentially, when they're in the licensing system, it's not giving them, a one-for-one view of what is also in CE broker. Correct?
No, our system cannot see within CE broker. It almost works like a Roman emperor. When the database questions CE broker, we get a thumbs up or a thumbs down is all we get from CE broker. And if we get a thumbs down, the system says no, your renewal's not going forward. I can't remember if it tells you go over to CE broker or not, but it won't process your payment. I know that you won't be able to pay and move forward. And you've got to go back into CE broker to see, okay, well, what is it that I'm missing? But rather than use our system, try to renew and then use our system to see whether or not you've met, it's easier to just log into CE broker and look to see whether you have that little green check mark or that red triangle. Because if you've got the green check mark, it's going to tell our system that you're good to go, and you won't get hung up because of the CE on that side. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to everybody.
I see one of the questions here about the Pro Plus account. I mentioned before, it's available to some license types, not all. I'm trying to think of the one that's excluded right now. It might be psychology. I'd have to double check.
Social work, I think.
Social work. Yeah, that's right. So the question is, does the Pro Plus account include all the CE requirements for your renewal? off the top of my head, I don't want to say yes, it absolutely does, because there are some situations, because essentially, not to get too in the weeds, but the way that works is we've set up, we've negotiated with educational providers to make their catalog available in the CE Broker system as part of the Pro Plus subscription level. Some state-specific requirements, I'm thinking jurisprudence, or I'm thinking like Tennessee laws and rules, for instance, because those national providers may not have content specific to that state, like with the laws and rules course, for instance. There are situations where not all of the content is included, but if that's an account tier that you're interested in, what I would encourage you to do is go over to the CE Broker course search. And again, you can filter by state, by license type, and subject area, and just go in here and look. If you want to look at ethics courses, distinct populations courses, and see if you can find those courses that have a Pro Plus icon here, and just do some due diligence beforehand. If you find that all of them are included, then you may want to go that route. If you find that most of them are, you can make that determination for yourself. But I don't want to blanketly say that 100% of the required content is included in Pro Plus, because there are some state specific stuff that I know it's not always the case.
Robert, I know you had answered something earlier about PESI. Could you answer that publicly? Because I know we've had a couple of people.
Yeah,
ask
we got
about
a
that.
couple of those. So again, we will accept CE credits from not just CE Broker. Somebody asked about PESI, somebody asked about CE for Less. Your local state and state associations are going to put on conferences and going to put on CEs, and you'll get certificates and you can report those. The 50% rule wants to know who is putting on that CE, and if they are on the list of provider types, they meet the 50% rule. PESI and CE for Less and other private online CE providers in and of themselves do not meet the 50% rule. They are a private entity, a profit-making institution. So just something they create does not count toward the 50% rule. However, if there is a course on CE Broker, on PESI, on CE for Less, any of them, that is provided by or endorsed by one of those approved provider groups. So endorsed by ASWB or endorsed by NBCC, then it qualifies for the 50% rule. So again, it really is individual courses who is providing it or endorsing it.
Janet, you had asked about back in the day, someone had to pay and be enrolled to be an approved CEU provider. Yeah, we stopped doing that when BHEC took over the regulation, because really the agencies weren't doing anything to vet the approved providers. They were just taking the $50, issuing you a CE provider number. And there really wasn't any kind of vetting that was going on. That's why we started basically the 50% rule. Is we know that some vetting occurs if you are getting your CE hours from one of those providers that's listed in that 50% rule. We simply just don't have the capability to vet the sheer volume of CE providers out there. It would take a small army of people to do that. So.
So I think, Jason, you just answered this live, so I'm going to clear. But Deborah, your question, I think this was, but in case you didn't realize it was being answered live, what he was just showing you is, yes, you can search search for courses by your license. And so same Daisy, I think this is what you're asking about social work. Again, yes, you can search for courses based on your license.
So I just accessed it through our general website, not from within a licensee account. And so because it's not coming from the account, it doesn't know who you are. And so you have to enter in some criteria here. But yeah, for example, if I'm a Texas social worker and I find courses, it's going to show you courses that are relevant to you, and you can also sort by subject area. So stuff that's recognized for the 50% rule with stuff that's not, distinct populations, human trafficking, etc. So yeah, there are some filtering criteria here to make sure you're looking at content that is relevant to you and your profession.
Robert Edelman, you had asked a question. So how do we know for sure who meets the 50% rule? You need to just look at who the coursework provider is, compare them to the list of providers that are recognized under the 50% rule. Those provider categories are very broad. They're meant to be kind of liberally construed to be as broad as possible. We are not trying to play gotcha here. I need everybody to understand that we don't enforce or view or administer the CE rules as a gotcha type program. We are very liberal in how we construe and administer that rule. It's really not hard. Don't overthink it. Just kind of use some good common sense. Use your good professional judgment. That's what got you to where you are. This is, you're in a profession, so, and y'all have not failed us in the past, so I'm not too worried about you being able to discern whether or not the provider you're looking at is going to fall within that or not. But I promise you, it's not hard, and it's not set up to be a gotcha or a trap. So just kind of use some common sense there. I mean, just by way of an example, if you're taking a course from a LPC supervisor, boom, that qualifies. If you're taking a course that's being put on by a university clinic or training program, that qualifies. If you're taking a course from NASW, TCA, APA, NBCC, you're good to go, because those are all state, local, and national associations. All your local associations, your local area societies, if they put something on, that's going to qualify under the 50% rule. All of that is pretty well, it's spelled out very well in the rules. So it's not hard, I promise.
Jason, I'm going to just call out. I see several comments, and I know your staff's already been working. Thank you, Kenya. With Eleanor, I see a lot of comments here. I'm going to dismiss them from the chat just so you know, but I'm sure that Kenya and the folks at CE Broker will reach out to you. I know you've expressed that you're having trouble, so didn't want you to think we're ignoring your chats, but it sounds like you're going to need a little personal attention to figure out what's going on with your account.
Yeah, Eleanor, I'll send you an email in just a few minutes.
Robert, do we have these slides posted on our website? I know we've got the recordings, the Q&A.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have almost everything else. We have the recordings. We have the frequently asked questions. We have the transcripts. We have but no, the one thing I don't have already up there are these slides.
Yeah, I'd be happy
so-
to. I can send you the slide deck.
There you go,
Perfect.
Gerald. There's your answer. We'll get it put on the website along with the recordings and the Q&A. So Marianne, you asked, can I get CEUs for this course provided by No, this is not a CE program here. We're not doing that for this one. I'll give you an A for effort though on that one. All right. We've got what, 20 minutes remaining. We probably need to shut down a little earlier than that to give Robert and I time to transition over. We've got something
Okay.
else we've got to do. We got to be in at 2 o'clock. So it's
I see one question here from Anne. Can you get the discount if you sign up prior to the discount code being given? So that's in reference to holiday promotion we're doing on the Pro Plus account, the 20% off the Pro Plus account. I would encourage you, Anne, to reach out to our support center with that question. They may have the ability, depending on when you signed up. If you signed up a few weeks ago, they may be willing to extend the discount to you retroactively. If you signed up, 6 months ago, maybe not. So that's the situation. I would just encourage you to reach out to support and see what they can do for you.
Some of these questions from Centauria Wheeler, others who have asking about specific courses and whether they apply. I answered one just recently. It is going to depend a lot on what the course is and who the provider is, and we rely on you as the professionals to make those judgment calls. If a course, questions about does this course count as CE for my license? We rely on you to know, is this professional development for your licensed activity? And again, it's the honor system. Be the professionals you are, and only count what's actually giving you training and development to your license practice, not a hobby, not something else out there that you go to. And then whether a provider counts for something, whether they are 50%, you have to decide whether that meets that.
Donna Williams, you were asking, when it says effective January 1st, 2026, does that mean I have to have all my current courses that I've taken by that date or by the June end of cycle? You just by the June end of cycle. The January 1st, 2026, that is when we begin requiring our renewal system to check against CE Broker to ensure that you have complied. So, for example, if you have a January or a February renewal date, you don't. Donna, you've got a June, but if you had a January or February renewal date, that individual would need to have set up their CE Broker account, entered all of their CE hours into that account, and gotten the green check mark on their account, so that when they renew in our system, it checks against CE Broker and says, "Yep, Daryl's good to go." You've got until June. Technically, you have until June to get yours set up and get everything entered. But one of the reasons we started this so early, and we actually started doing all these presentations and helping people get set up long before the deadline kicked in, is we wanted a long runway so that people could play around with the system, get used to it, enter everything in, get comfortable with it, because there's naturally a lot of hesitancy to change, and there's a learning curve that goes in with this. So I would encourage you to go ahead and get your CE Broker account set up, start entering your hours so that you could get comfortable and familiar with it. That way, if you have any problems you encounter, you've got plenty of time to get with Jason and his folks to get any kind of kinks or bugs worked out, and then you're good to go in June. That way you'll be good to go in June when it comes time to actually renew your license. So, but if there's just something you're waiting on until May to go take, no, you don't have to do anything. January 1st isn't going to foul you up. You can wait until May, but I just encourage people, don't lay behind the log or wait on this. Just go ahead and start working on it now. It's pretty intuitive once you get into it. It's really not hard. So play around with it.
All right. Maybe time for one more question if y'all kind of need to jump off.
Yeah.
Holly said, thanks to you, Robert, if it shows as an option, then I should be able to use that Pro Plus account, correct? Yes, if you find that account level valuable to you personally, if it's available for you in the sign-up flow, then yes, you'll be able to create an account using that subscription level and have access to courses in our course search that are part of the Pro Plus platform. But again, it's certainly not required by any means. You do what you feel is best for you as a individually.
And that was a reference too to I may have misspoke previously that it was social work that was not available. Another person is asking about LCSW supervisors not seeing a jurisprudence requirement. check your requirements and the rules. We have done our best in this webinar to explain what all of the requirements and rules are, but frankly, we're trying to look at 4 different boards and 4 different rules and keep track of the minutia. We may have misspoke. We may have not stated the exact right thing. Don't freak out if you find as you're entering things that it's not exactly what we said. The CE broker account will tell you what your requirements are. If it says it there, that's what it is. If you have questions later, you feel free to reach out to us or to CE broker. Well, we don't try to make mistakes, but we certainly do on occasion.
Luciana Johnson, just kind of answer your question about Metro Care Services. As long as those, whatever education you're getting from them is directly related to the practice of whatever it is you do, it's going to count. Now, whether it counts towards the 50% rule or not, it will depend upon who the provider is. I don't know what Metro Care Services is, if that's a hospital system or what, but so you would have to look at the rule and see, are those services that are coming from Metro Care Services, do they fall under one of the recognized providers for the 50% requirement? If they do, it counts towards 50%. If they don't, you can still claim them. So don't just write them off and not take them. There's still some value there. So just take a look at the rule and kind of compare it against it. All right. I think that's about all we've got time for today. I'd like to thank everybody for Jason, Robert, did y'all have anything you wanted to say wrapping up? Okay.
No,
Like-
not other than the I'll be sure to share the slide deck with Robert and Daryl and his team after the fact. Then at some point in the near future, a recording of the webinar will be available on the BHEC Continuing Education website. So
yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. Lots of good questions. We appreciate everybody's the time and attention you put in now. We sweat a little more now, so we bleed less later. So I really appreciate those of you that showed up and put in the effort today to learn it, because it'll definitely help y'all, and it helps us, takes workload off of us. Jason, thank you and your team for doing this. Look forward to working with everybody, and we'll see all the rest of you in 2026, I suppose.
certainly.